Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. But today, we want to talk about Russian propaganda because it's actually influencing major AI platforms. These are platforms that millions and millions of people use every single day. Think ChatGPT. That's what we're talking about here, and this is absolutely nuts. Now, NewsGuard, basically the organization that looks at bias in news, had a really good write-up on this, thanks to Mackenzie Sedhegi and also Isis Blachez. I apologize if I am screwing up those names, but thank you very much for this, because a Moscow-based disinformation network known as Pravda, that's the Russian word for truth for the record, is pursuing an ambitious strategy by deliberately infiltrating the retrieved data of artificial intelligence chatbots, publishing false claims and propaganda for the purpose of affecting the responses of those AI models on topics in the news. And they're not targeting humans. They're targeting the AI that the humans are using. That's what we're talking about here. And real quick, before we dive in further, note that this network of websites is different from the websites using the pravda.ru domain, which basically publishes in English and Russian and is owned by Vadim Gorshanin. He's a self-described supporter of Vladimir Putin, who formerly worked for the Pravda newspaper, which was owned by the Communist Party in the former Soviet Union. That news publication still exists. It is considered a propaganda wing as well, but this Pravda is a different animal. And so with that, let's get back to it, because by flooding the search results and web crawlers with pro-Kremlin falsehoods, the network is distorting how LLMs, or large language models, are processing and presenting news and information to all of us. The result, basically, is that massive amounts of Russian propaganda are now being incorporated into the outputs of these Western AI systems, infecting their responses with false claims and propaganda. And this isn't small. We're talking about 3.6 million articles published in 2024 alone. So this basically infection of Western chatbots was foreshadowed, for the record, basically by an American fugitive turned Moscow-based propagandist known as John Mark Dougan. And basically he essentially gave a talk in Moscow last January at a conference of Russian officials when he told them, quote, "By pushing these Russian narratives from the Russian perspective, we can actually change worldwide AI." Now, a NewsGuard audit basically found that leading AI chatbots repeated false narratives laundered by this Pravda network 33% of the time, essentially validating Dougan's promise of a powerful new distribution channel for disinformation by the Kremlin. NewsGuard basically tested 10 of the leading AI chatbots. We're talking about OpenAI's ChatGPT 4o, U.com's Smart Assistant, xAI's Grok, Inflection's Pi, Mistral's LE Chat or Lee Chat, Microsoft's Copilot, Meta AI, Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini, and Perplexity's Answer Engine. Those are the heavy hitters here. This is insane. NewsGuard tested the chatbots with basically a sampling of 15 false narratives that have been advanced by the network of 150 pro-Kremlin Pravda websites between April of 2022 through February of this year. NewsGuard's findings confirm a February 2025 report by the nonprofit here in the US known as ASP, or the American Sunlight Project, which warned that the Pravda network was likely designed to manipulate AI models rather than to generate human traffic. In other words, if nobody's reading the websites, they don't care, but the large language models are. And so the nonprofit termed this tactic for affecting LLMs as the, quote, LLM grooming. So that's essentially what we are talking about here. Pravda Network does not produce original content. Instead, it functions as a laundering machine for Kremlin propaganda, aggregating content from Russian state media, pro-Kremlin influencers, and government agencies and officials through a broad set of seemingly independent websites. NewsGuard found that the Pravda Network has spread a total of 207 provably false claims, serving as a central hub for disinformation laundering. And these range from claims like the U.S. operates secret bioweapons labs in Ukraine, if you remember that one, to fabricated narratives pushed by basically Mark John Dougan, claiming that Ukrainian President Zelensky misused the U.S. military aid to amass a personal fortune. If you recall, there were articles on Zelensky that he was like buying houses when he's not, or that his wife bought like a Bugatti Tourbillon like when she was in Paris, she did not, etc., etc. This is all coming from that network and is being incorporated into the AI. So when that student, that prospect, that person that wants to learn about this says, hey, tell me about Zelensky, this is the type of information that could potentially come up, and it's demonstrably false. And because artificial intelligence, as I've mentioned multiple times in these segments in the past, it sounds authoritative, people tend to believe it. And the Russians know this. And so this is also, for the record, on the Russian side of stuff, known as Portal Combat. The Pravda network launched in 2022 after basically the full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24th of that year as well. So this is right on the heels of that invasion, and it was first identified in February of 2024 by Viginum. That's a French government agency that monitors foreign disinformation campaigns. And since then, the network has expanded significantly, targeting 49 countries and dozens of languages across 150 domains. And this is, again, all coming from this NewsGuard report and other research organizations as well. And like I said, it's basically churned out 3.6 million articles, and this is a huge problem. And this is also why the segment that I did the other day on the U.S. spinning down cyber operations against Russia is such a problematic thing. If we are essentially standing down and letting them continue to flood the zone that the large language models are looking at and ingesting, that's a huge problem. And then the secondary issue is OpenAI, Microsoft, xAI, all of them. What are they doing to actually look through this and ensure that their artificial intelligences aren't spewing this kind of propaganda? Doesn't seem like they're doing anything right now. They're just consuming a whole bunch of data that's essentially poisoning the information well. So this is a problem coming and going either way. I am not a fan of this at all, nor should you be, because quite frankly, if we're going to be using artificial intelligence, it should be giving us the truth. And yes, it is basically prone to hallucinate in anticipation of what you need. I literally just talked about that the other day as well. But it should basically hallucinate on its own, not using any kind of disinformation that essentially is demonstrably false and would put something basically against the light of truth, meaning it's shining an unfavorable light, let's say on President Zelensky, for example, when there's demonstrably false information about that. So I think this is a huge problem. This is how this becomes pervasive, and essentially like social media that has been weaponizing disinformation. This is the next evolution of that. The disinformation networks in social media are now showing up in artificial intelligence, large language models. So when you're using ChatGPT or Claude or any one of them, now you've got the same issue as you do the person that's arguing with you on Facebook or wherever that is simply drinking the Kool-Aid because they believe the disinfo. So coming and going, this is a tough one. There's no easy answers here beyond vetting, filtering, and trying to figure this out, an effective way of monitoring, which is also why it's very disastrous that basically the Twitters, the Facebooks of the world have been cutting their trust and safety teams left and right. And so by virtue of that, it allows this to spread even further. So it sucks right now, but this is the reality that we live in. And quite frankly, we have to make sure it is the reality and not the disinformation the Russians want us to have. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at Nick AESP, where you're going to get the truth all the time, at least from me, or the truth to the best of my ability. Same with YouTube, where you should subscribe. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, please, please attempt to stay private and informed. Take care.